fucked up by realizing 8 months too late that a coworker asked me out. Throwaway, so my main doesn't get flooded. So I made a TIFU about 8, 9 months ago that I'm only now realizing was very likely me being asked out by a girl at work. Let me start by saying I'm 26 and have never had the greatest self-esteem. It's something I've been working on. I've also never had a girlfriend or asked someone out, and I've never had the easiest time opening up to make friends. Although I haven't gotten tested, I suspect I might be on the spectrum. The only time I found out about girls liking me was well after they've moved on or through another person. I work in the healthcare field as a CNA on a med-surg floor. I started at this job 2 years ago, and since then, I've met a lot of travel nurses. About a year ago, my floor had a travel nurse come through. She had albinism and was absolutely gorgeous with a capital G, almost scarily beautiful in a way that made you question if she was real or a straight-up hallucination. She and I never talked too much until I got most of her patients on one of my shifts, and we began to talk regularly. Another couple of months go by, and near the end of her contract, we're talking, and the topic of blood pressures comes up. I let her know that I never learned how to do a manual blood pressure reading. Please, hindsight is 2020. At the time, I seriously thought she and I were just work friends. I've met and talked to plenty of coworkers outside of work, and it's always been platonic and cordial or in a group setting. Anyways, she had already told me her contract was ending, and the next day was her last, which I wouldn't be working. But she'd be in town for an extra week before she moved on, and she had a manual blood pressure cuff at her place. She asked if I'd like to come by sometime so she could show me. God, I don't know what kind of demon possessed my brain, or if God himself sucked out my ability to read the mood, but my fucking idiot self opened my mouth and essentially said, "No, I'm busy working. I'll get Janet to show me the next time I'm here." From there, the conversation basically died as we waited for the 7:30 a.m. clockout time. Now, 8 to 9 months later, I'm reading some Reddit post high as fuck, and for some reason that interaction popped into my head and would not leave until it finally clicked. A gorgeous lady asked me out, TLDR. A travel nurse from work asked me to meet at her place on her last week in the area so she could teach me to take a manual blood pressure. And I told her that I'd basically go hang with another similarly aged coworker of mine instead. Today I fucked up by brushing too aggressively. Short and sweet one, and was actually last night. However, El Nephew doesn't roll off the tongue as well, so I hate mint. I'm not going to explain it. Funny thing is, I used to like it, but after having kids, one of the weird things that happened is I no longer like mint. Pregnancy is weird. Problem is, toothpaste is, a majority of the time, mint. Dear sis, if you read this, please tell me where you found the strawberry-flavored stuff. And they range from bitter as feck to cloyingly sweet. The irony of sweet toothpaste is not lost on me. So last night, I was brushing hard and fast to get it over with so I could spit the cold burn of hell out of my mouth when I shifted to my top teeth a little too enthusiastically, and I somehow managed to shove the entire head of my brush up my nose. I have no words for the pain that lingered upon the sensitive membranes of my inner nose, which continued to linger for what felt like ages as my eyes flared up from the minty tear gas literally permeating my skull. Even now, nearly 24 hours later, my nose still tingles. Don't be like me. Take your time. TR. I accidentally shoved a toothbrush coated in mint toothpaste up my nose, and that shtet burns. Today, I fucked up by asking the waiter for a dessert. I come from China, and I am studying in Melbourne, Australia. I'm confident about my English proficiency since I got a relatively high IELTS score. But even with this, sometimes I still make minor mistakes about simple words in English. One day, I went to an Italian restaurant to eat lunch. After finishing the mains, I asked the waiter if I could get a dessert menu. The waiter seemed confused, and then I said I want some panna cotta, and the waiter finally understood. I suddenly realized that I might have pronounced dessert wrong, so I looked the word up. Then I realized that dessert and desert have different pronunciations as nouns. I should have said dessert instead of desert. Sometimes, even if you think that you are already good at something, you still make minor mistakes and get confused about simple things. I asked the waiter for a dessert, but it actually is dessert. Today I fucked up and lost my best friend of over 11 years. Well, not today exactly. It was actually 11 months ago now, but boy howdy is it hitting me hard lately. We used to talk almost every day, voice calls for the entire evening, and playing games until the wee hours of the morning. We met back in 2012, playing World of Warcraft, and basically lived out our 20s as best friends. I don't know that I trusted any non-family member as much as I trust that guy. I still see him as a little brother. This only amounts to making it hurt all the more due to the loss. We'll call him C. C, actually, back in 2013, introduced me to my now wife, D. At one point they had a thing, but it didn't work out. D and I continued talking for years. When back in 2017, we decided to actually seriously date and got married in 2018. See, we were going to play Baldur's Gate 3 last year, and C created a character that had D's name. This was a bit of a shock to me and made me feel uncomfortable. I didn't really know how to handle the situation, so I tried to ask him about it. He explained that the character had been a character he used many times in D&D campaigns, and that the name was actually quite common and even recommended in various lists of names for that race. I was a total jerk, didn't listen, and immediately got defensive. He as well got defensive, but I feel like his defensiveness was infinitely more reasonable. This resulted in roughly a 2 to 3 hour argument. One of the final things he said to me, "We can't be friends if you don't think I trust you and your wife." To which, in my complete and total asshat nature, said, "I don't know how you regard us. That's up to you." I initially thought this entire exchange would be written off, and it wasn't until days later I realized that I had done something highly disrespectful, rude, and hurtful. Those words have since been burned into my head. 11 months go by. I've tried to make new gaming buddies, but it just hasn't been the same. C and I liked basically all the same genres, save for a few. We were almost always ready and excited to play the same games. We had the same humor and laughed at almost all the same things. Haven't found that connection again. Fairly certain it's cause we partially grew up together. When we first met, C was still in high school. Now he's graduated college and we're both working full-time jobs. And it just sucks. I ruined such a critical and important friendship in my life because I wanted to be a pompous asshat, excuse the language. I found myself thinking about C a lot these last few weeks, as we're nearing a year since we last spoke. I'm pretty sure he's blocked me on almost every platform. I tried to reach out via Discord, since it still shows us as friends there. I tried to apologize, but I can only assume he hasn't read it. Or maybe he hasn't want to read it, to be fair. As we near the anniversary of losing my best friend, I can't help but find depression sinking in and reminiscing about the good times. And at the end of it all, I really just wish I could apologize to him. I could understand not being friends again. I could understand not even talking again. But dang, I wish I could just tell C how sorry I am. I really needed to get this off my chest, as it has been breaking me, especially these last 2 weeks. Especially since last week was his birthday. I appreciate all of your time. Please be good to your friends, especially if they've been good to you. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Hear them out. Trust them. Give them your faith. It's so hard to replace quality friendships as an adult, especially in today's geopolitical climate.